This final keynote speaker has a resume that is almost dizzying. It's so impressive that I don't even know where to start. Hakeem Bello-Osagie is the chairman of Etisalat, one of the leading mobile operators in Africa. He's also the chairman of Vitol, the world's largest oil trading group. He is a graduate of Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard Business School. The list goes on and on. He is on the board, the advisory board of Harvard University, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Brookings Institute. I mean, he is so impressive as an entrepreneur, as a former economist, as a former lawyer, one of the most inspiring entrepreneurs in Africa. And it's a great honor that I would like to introduce our final keynote speaker of the day. Welcome to the stage.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, whenever I get an introduction like that, I first don't recognize myself. I then say to myself, wouldn't it be nice for me to get to meet this guy? And then I realize that that guy does not exist. Please do not take too seriously what he has to say. Nonetheless, I have to tell you that I, as a young student in high school, had the ambition to be a great mathematician. In high school in Nigeria, we were sorted out between the bright guys who did science and engineering, and the arts guys were those who failed to do science and engineering. And the greatest single accomplishment in those days was to be admitted to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. There was no greater honor because in that institution was supposed to be the smartest guys in the world. I haven't said that I agree with that statement. Now, in that ambition, I pursued mathematics for a while, despite having great difficulty in getting any electric circuit to function in my physics, despite having great difficulty tackling valencies in chemistry. But at a certain point, mathematics dropped me. And I settled with studying philosophy, politics, and economics. I therefore want you all to know that it gives me great satisfaction having all you clever and brilliant MIT guys sitting here listening to some guy who's a failed mathematician and engineer and who spent his time on what the MIT engineers used to say were the BS subjects like philosophy, political theory, and so on and so forth. Thank you very much. I've had a very boring morning and afternoon, and I'm very pleased it's been boring because I don't know whether you know, the last time I came to Cambridge, Massachusetts to speak, it was at the Harvard Business School, a place that some of you might have heard about. I was receiving some award, and I woke up in the morning to discover that there was a story in the internet which claimed that I had died. I spent the entire morning and afternoon before my speech informing all who could hear that I had not died and that I was, in fact, alive. When I stood up at the business school and told them how happy I was to be with them, they did not understand what I fully meant. On this occasion, though, I want to tell you that I am truly very happy to be with you. I'm going to divide my talk into two parts. The first part, I will run through very quickly, as quickly as I can, the main features of my business life. I'm going to speak very frankly and very openly and very honestly. I wish it hadn't been taped, but I'm told that that's one of the professional hazards of life these days. And then I will try to draw what I think are some lessons from what I've learned in my life, and then I'll open it up to question and answers. But there's one thing I do want to start by saying to you all, that I have made many mistakes in my life. I am not anywhere near as impressive as I am described. I've had my failures in my life. I've had lots of luck in my life. And therefore, I do not present myself to you as anything special. And I do want to say in all seriousness that I generally do not believe that there's anything that I have achieved in my life that each one of you in this room will not achieve in your lifetime with determination and a little bit of luck. And I say that in all sincerity. I started off in England at university at Oxford, and I thoroughly enjoyed my philosophy and politics course. I went on to do law, not because I enjoyed it, but because my father informed me that all respectable human beings have that thing called a profession. Philosophy was definitely not a profession. Politics was dangerous. And I decided to do law. I went through my law degree in Cambridge, and I attended a grand total of 2 lectures in 2 years. I was very good at reading on my own, but I had the kind of mind that tended to drift during lectures, and therefore found that at the bottom of the piece of paper, there was hardly anything there that resembled what the lecturer had to say. But nonetheless, I got through that and came to business school. I have to be honest with you and tell you that I did not particularly like my first year at business school. I found most of the students a bit pompous and self-important. I thought that they took life far too seriously. I enjoyed some of the subjects, I have to say, but I have to be honest with you and tell you that I just passed my accounting exam. I didn't like finance at all. In fact, I hated finance so much that when I was dating the lady who later on became my wife, and our daughter is here today, and she better not do what I did, I remember telling her that I'm taking my finance exam. It's going to be the last time I ever do finance in my life. And I'm going to leave the exam hall 15 minutes early so that we can beat the traffic to watch a great jazz show that was taking place that evening. My summer was in a consulting firm, BCG. I hated working. I hated working in that consulting firm. There was nothing wrong with BCG, but I just didn't enjoy consulting. And I remember the only times I enjoyed that summer in London was when the check arrived. And I felt very good about the check for about 30 minutes. And on those occasions, when I would meet another business school student who would ask me where I was working, and I would say BCG, and he would look at me with great respect. But I thoroughly, and I'm happy I had that experience because it taught me one thing, which is that you should never work in something because of the money, because of the prestige, because it is the thing to do, but you should work in something that you intensely enjoy. And I learned at the end of that summer that that paycheck and announcing to everybody that I was at BCG was not enough to sustain me for the rest of my life. And that cured me of ever saying to myself, I must do something because it is the thing to do. I went back to business school, second year. Second year, I really enjoyed. I asked all my business school friends how they found their summer jobs. Like all good business school students, they all said exactly the same thing. It was fulfilling, rewarding, and promising. I cannot remember a single business school student who said to me, I didn't like it, it was dull, it was this, and it was that. They all said exactly the same things. And therefore, the message I want to pass to you at the end of my period is that if you do not like consulting, you do not like investment banking, here stands before you a guy who did not like either of the two of them and has survived. Do what you want to do and what you love doing. Don't let anybody put you into a straitjacket and force you to do things that you don't want to do. There are many exciting things out there in the world to do, and pursue them. I took the decision to return to Nigeria. And I got a job. I was very fortunate to get the job. A lot of people have written articles about how I got this job due to my superior educational qualifications. I have to be very honest with you. I got the job as special assistant to the presidential advisor on petroleum and energy, largely because my father was the gynecologist to the president of Nigeria. And I do want to tell you very honestly that the gynecological connection is a very powerful connection indeed. I did promise you that this was going to be a very honest speech. But I'm serious about it in that the importance of chance, the fact that I had a helping hand from a father, has to be something that I must admit. And I'm not going to stand here and tell you I got that job because I was fantastic, hardworking, due to the grace of God, etc., etc., etc. On that occasion, Dad helped. All I can take credit for is having used that opportunity to the best of my ability. I was the lowest paid member of the Harvard Business School class of 1980 in that job. My salary was so low that it put Harvard Business School in a bit of a panic. That year, Stanford Business School had, for the very first time, on the rankings, passed Harvard Business School in terms of academic reputation. Harvard responded, that's BS. In where it really counts, average starting salary, we are ahead. I think it was something like $50 or so between the two. I got a call from the business school. They were deeply concerned that my salary might just pull down that average. And after a brief discussion, it was agreed that that year my salary, since I was doing national service, would qualify as charity for that year. Harvard beat Stanford. They swore it was all due to the marketplace. And I'm quite amused because just this was 1980, and now 2014, Stanford is ahead of Harvard in average starting salary. Harvard now says we're ahead at academic reputation, and it's academic reputation that really counts. I thoroughly enjoyed my job as special assistant to the presidential advisor. I worked for a very fine man, Yahya Dikko. And I found my work in the public service amongst the most rewarding work that I've ever done in my life. And I want to commend to all of you that at some point in your lives, apart from making money, apart from entrepreneurship, I would commend to all of you at some point in your life to do something that is of public service. It may not be a job in the government, maybe a job in the diplomatic service, it may be a job in an NGO, it may be a job in the United Nations, but the reward, the spiritual reward, the psychological reward of having left the public better than you met it, for me is one of the greatest rewards, and it has given me great satisfaction all my life. And I would not rule it out simply because you are business school students. I survived 2 coups. The first coup was quite hilarious. I had just proposed to my, at that time I say girlfriend. She was from Ghana. We had met, she was at the law school when I was at the business school, and I had just, to impress her, taken her on her very first holiday to Abidjan. We were staying at the Hotel Ivoire. And I woke up the very first morning of the holiday and got a phone call from somebody informing me that there had been a coup d'etat in Nigeria and that all special assistants, special advisors, and ministers were to report to the nearest police station. It took me a few minutes to remember that I was a special assistant. I remain eternally grateful to my dear wife that despite that very unpromising start to our relationship, that she remains with me today, and that we have 3 daughters and 1 son, 1 daughter who is at Yale and who is here today. I present as evidence that things are going well. I left the government on an idea that I would set up a petroleum consulting company. I did that having observed that a lot of major international oil companies simply did not know how to deal with the Nigerian government. I sensed that there was a market there, but I have to say that I never imagined how big a gap it was. So I was in one of those great situations where you are fulfilling demand for something, but that demand is greater than you ever imagined. And so I found myself in the very lucky situation, which will only happen to you very rarely in life, where you're being paid large amounts of money, much more than you think you deserve, but you're quite happy to accept that cash. I got bored after a couple of years, and I decided that I wanted to become a principal. For reasons which I simply cannot explain. Part of the issue was that there were no opportunities for principals in the petroleum sector. The areas where you could become an entrepreneur were in the finance section. And given the way that I had attacked finance in university, I still do not understand why I chose finance as my first vehicle for entrepreneurship. Needless to say, it was a complete disaster. And I failed utterly. And I have to say that probably 80% of that failure was entirely my own failure. I went in with a couple of friends to set up a small financial institution. I assumed that they had worked it all out. I hardly monitored what was going on as a director. I didn't really read the accounts regularly. I did not fully appreciate loan loss provisioning, except that occasionally some of the lectures that a professor had made sort of floated through my mind as I was looking through these accounts. And I lost at that time something of the order of $6 million. It was a shattering experience. First time in my life in which I'd had what you call a sleepless night. But frankly speaking, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. because it forced me to examine myself, to examine my weaknesses, to examine what was necessary to be successful. And it gave me a burning desire, maybe not to avenge what had happened, but maybe to succeed in finance, an area that I had hated. It was a very painful period, but one of the things I want to share with you is that there's nothing there are no lessons in life that are taught to you so pitilessly, but so thoroughly and so completely as failure. Failure must not crush you. Failure must strengthen you. And without it, I don't think that you ever fully realize your potential. My next venture was a securities trading outfit. It was probably, in financial terms, the investment of mine that made the highest return on investment that I've ever had. 4 times the equity in the first year. My major problem was how to reduce, in the accounts, the profitability of the company, because I was convinced that the Central Bank of Nigeria would, without any doubt, change all the rules on discovering how well I was doing. But that's the kind of problem which you all need to have once in a while. And it was from FSDH, realizing that, yes, I was doing very well, but that there were a number of very large banks in the country who could take me out if they woke up, who could outtrade me because they had much more liquidity. It was the insecurity from that position that made me stage the takeover of the United Bank of Africa, which made me either notorious or famous, depending on your point of view. The United Bank of Africa's turnaround was one of the most difficult enterprises that I've undertaken, but it was an enterprise which was truly rewarding and fulfilling. And while at the United Bank of Africa, in an attempt to make the bank competitive, I was forced to go into telecommunications. And in setting up the first VSAT company in Nigeria, it led me to GSM and to mobile phone companies. And I decided I was going to go into telecommunications. I tried to go into telecoms 3 times and failed 3 times. Now, when you try a 4th time, you're in a very interesting position. If you fail, the story is written about your stupid stubbornness and your refusal to face the facts of life. If you succeed, the story is written about your tenacity, about your extraordinary refusal to give up against amazing odds, and that you're there, undaunted, and a person who never gives up. That last attempt on telecoms, I succeeded by, in percentage terms, in my view, just 51%. It was a very close thing. And I'm lucky, therefore, that the story that has been written is one of great perseverance, great tenacity, etc., etc., etc. I've wandered into real estate due to my wife's influence, who loves real estate. And I hope that as I turn 60 next year, to spend more and more time on public matters and less time on private matters. That's roughly been my life. 4 or 5 lessons I want to share with you. The first, which I have already mentioned. In life, go your own way. Never allow the public, convention, tradition, tell you which way you want to go. There's a lovely poem which I'm sure you've all read that I want you to take to heart. It's the lovely quote from Robert Frost, who says, I went into the forest. 2 roads diverged in front of me. I took the road that was less traveled upon, and that has made all the difference. I have enjoyed walking on my own road. I have tremendously enjoyed going into the consulting business in petroleum at a time when nobody else thought it made sense. I have very much enjoyed taking over an old government bank when everybody said to me it made no sense. And I want you all to realize that the fact that you're going in one direction and everybody is going in another direction doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. Do your own thing. The second lesson, which I've already spoken about, and I want to repeat here, is that failure is not to be avoided. If you hope or expect to go to the very limits of what is possible within you, you have got to attempt from time to time things that look impossible. And if you are to attempt things that are impossible, you have to confront the probability that sometimes you will fail. There's nothing shameful about failure. What is shameful is if after failing, you quit, you feel terrible, and you say no more. The third lesson that I want to put before you is the importance of tenacity. When I look back at my business school class and I see where we are today, luck obviously has played a very important role in those who have succeeded and those who have not. That I don't deny. But the quality that I have come to believe marks the most successful from the least successful, not so much brain power, but tenacity. That hunger to succeed, that willingness to try and try and try again. That sense that, a feeling that you can do it and that you're not going to let anything stop you from doing it. That total belief in yourself. A certain form of arrogance in some sense, but only arrogance in the sense that you believe that there are few problems that you cannot confront. Not the arrogance that you're better than somebody else, but the confidence that you can overcome any problem. One other lesson is that there's an element in life of, shall I say, a gamble which you cannot get over. There's a lovely DVD by an American statesman that I have great respect and admiration for called Robert Strange McNamara, where he talks about the fog of war. You can apply it to business life. And that is that in business, you will be standing in front of a fog. You cannot see all the elements. You cannot see the road clearly before you, but you still have to press on. If you can see all the elements clearly before you, I want to assure you that somebody has already gone through and seized that opportunity. Notwithstanding the fog, you must take decisions and you must go ahead. The problem of Harvard Business School students often is that we want one last little piece of data before we make a decision. I suspect the problem of MIT students is that there's one more number that they're looking for before they take a decision. You've got to take a decision on the basis of the facts and the numbers that you have, and understand that if you have made mistakes, you need to have the courage, the agility to make the necessary adjustments in your strategy and in your plans. Finally, the critical importance of teamwork. There are no giant individuals who do it by themselves. There's a great proverb that I was given by an old teacher, in which a man says to his followers, "If I appear to you to look like a giant, it is not because I'm a giant. It is because I'm standing on the shoulders of many other people that you cannot see." All great efforts are a result of teamwork, and you must build great teams who complement the talents and the weaknesses that you have, and you must give them credit for that teamwork. 2 remaining pieces of advice. However successful you may be in your business life and in your career, it means very little if you do not have a personal life which is enduring, which is central, and which gives you a sense of affection, of being needed, and of needing somebody else. I have met many businessmen who are extraordinarily rich, who are on the pages of many magazines, and who are deeply unhappy. That whatever success you want in business, it is not worth the cost in your personal lives. And that at the end of the day, what matters for all of us is our ability to develop relationships with our children, with our spouses, with our partners, with our friends, and in our community. Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis said something that I very much liked. She was asked, "What do you think is your greatest achievement?" And she said, "To bring up 2 normal children." We do not all have to have children, but in the sense of mentoring and in the sense of our relationships with other individuals, that is as important in your lives as is your business success. I will end by wishing you well, assuring all of you that you will all do far better and do much greater things than I have ever imagined for myself. That is your destiny. You're a generation whose destiny is to do far better than my generation. That is the very definition of success and progress and civilization, which is one younger generation doing better than our own generation. I know that many times in Africa, many elders are not exactly thrilled at the success of many people younger than them. I want to assure you that I look forward to a time in 20 or 30 years from now in which some of you in this room are standing here talking about your great successes, handing over to another generation, having lived lives that are successful and complete. Yeats, an English poet, has to end this talk. I like the idea of quoting Yeats to a group of scientists in technology. Yeats said, "Gather ye rosebuds while ye may. Gather ye rosebuds while ye may. Seize the times." He didn't say hold on to the times. He didn't say lurch towards the times. He says seize the times. And then he says the last line, which I love: make your lives extraordinary. Don't be ordinary. He says make your lives extraordinary. Ladies and gentlemen from MIT, thank you very much. Good luck. God bless.